Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience presented by Underdog. Code Mayo at Underdog right now. Get you a $5 pick'em play when you play it. You get $100 guaranteed, win or lose, plus a deposit bonus, plus a free pick. Please go sign up to Underdog right now. Smash the like while you're here. You got to be subbed to Mayo Media Network if you have questions to ask John Breslin and Tower Tambolini, both of 4for4 Football and ShipItNation.com. Tambo was out last week because he went to Turkey to get a mustache surgery.
Yes, that's good. I'm glad you brought that one up. This is the Triple M on MMN. It's the Millie Maker mustache on the Mayo Media Network, and I will shave it when I win the Millie Maker, Pat. That's the new thing.
Oh, God. What if you don't win? What happens to you? What happens to your face?
Huge mustache. Huge mustache. I can always get it removed later with the implant, the reverse implant surgery, but we got her done.
John, he's going to be walking around like Hulk Hogan in 1987.
I was thinking like ZZ Top or something like that. Just like... Just grows down.
You guys have no faith in me. I mean, John's won the Millie Maker. I could win it too. Come on, give me a chance here.
Well, just start entering like the $10,000 millionaire maker every single week and max entering it, and you'll be fine. Is that
I got a ticket to the. I got a ticket. I got a bunch to the 555, and then I got a ticket to the 4444 Mega on Monday. So it could be as soon as Monday night, Pat. That could be the case.
Even if you win that, you're not going to win $1 million.
I think I will. I'm going to play to win.
Yeah, I get that you play to win, but how many solo ships have there been of a showdown contest ever?
This year, a ton actually. There's and even if not a full ship, I mean, I'll ship it if I win the Millie Maker for $500K because that'd be a two-way chop. But just the other night, our guy shout out to Nelson Adcock, cut sweats, $165K, double chop, just him and Osimo, just the other night.
John, have you picked up any more World Championship seats for all of the sports yet?
No, not yet. Actually, I was in New York for the weekend, so like played a little bit lower volume. And it was actually looking like a really good week. And I was like sitting there as we were walking around New York as a family, thinking like, oh, I should have piled way more money into this like stupid family. Should have done more gambling, right? But then like the last like Brock Bowers touchdown, like took me to a loss. Like, oh well, it's good. I enjoyed the family time, played a lower volume, just enjoying time in the city.
And that's good because like you're walking around the city, it's hard to get your heart rate high enough to burn calories, but you got that sweat going on, and all of a sudden it gets pumped up. It sounds like the best of all worlds.
Yeah, exactly. Kept me warm in a cold New York day. So
yeah, well, the lineups weren't cold last week, Tambo. They were hot, and I was like, I'm doing well this week. And then I checked, and it's like, oh no, I'm losing everywhere this week because everyone has all the points.
Yeah, it's essentially it started with Brock Bowers. If you didn't have that, to John's point, it's like, okay, he's back. Oh, he's back again. And like, oh my God, this guy needs to stop now. He's just crushing me in any lineup I don't have him. And then in the ones you have him, you're hoping you got everything else right. But it was interesting because he wasn't as high owned as you would think last week. Coming back, people weren't as high to get back in on him. And now last night, everybody wanted him and he completely disappointed. So that's the way it goes.
That's exactly the way it goes. John, we spoke about Brock Bowers last week. I ended up with him in, I think, in 2 of 10 lineups, and the entire conversation was, yeah, we don't know how this is going to go, but he's the 4th highest priced tight end, and he's probably the best tight end, so why not take a chance?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a good call. And now the Raiders have traded Jacoby Myers, although they didn't look good last night.
Oh, no, it looked fantastic last night because I had a few underdog plays on it, but the only bet that I made, Tambo, is I laddered up Tyler Lockett to over 4.5 receptions. He had 5. What a hero.
Big time. Gotta love Tyler's, man. They always seem to come through.
Yeah, it's true. I had not considered that. So maybe you will win the Millie Maker this week.
It's very possible. Tyler Lockett propels me to the top. Just the vibes from Tyler Lockett alone from this week.
Let's dig into what the optimal is telling me. If you go to 4for4.com right now, you can use 4for4.com/Mayo, use code Mayo50 or the 25% one for the annual fee that's up there right now. But you get a free week to test everything out, including all the DFS tools, and you can take a gander at all of John's work behind the paywall up at 4for4.com. But here's what it's telling us. Jackson Dart is the starting quarterback on this cash roster at $5,700. Rico Daddle and HN are the 2 running backs. Wandale to go with Dart. Jennings and Jackson Smith and Jigba, the 3 wide receivers. It goes double tight end, Henry and McBride, along with Jags D. Now, obviously, we are not entering this lineup in the contest that The tournament that I picked again is the $10 10 max with the $4,700 people. So that's the constructs that we're going to use here and talk around that a little bit. What change would you like to make first, John? Because the Rico Dowdle situation, if he's going to carry immense ownership, like I get it, he is dealing with a quad injury. And what we saw last week with, and this is the Panthers offense, not the Rams offense, but we saw a big split between Kyron Williams and Blake Corum simply because the Rams got up by so much that they started handing the ball off and to multiple people. They didn't need to run their starters out towards the end of the game. Probably the same reason Puka didn't come back in. I'd be good with fading Dowdle this week.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable call. I like him. He's only 6,300, so I don't know that he at 6,300 he doesn't necessarily need to have 40 carries or 30 carries, right? And it's a good game against the Saints defense. Saints traded Rashid Shaheed, so a little bit of a white flag going up there. We're not necessarily going to get a bunch of Carolina favored by 5.5 points games for the Panthers for the rest of the season. So I think if you want to get rid of Rico and that's where you want to start, I think that's fine. One of the things that catches my eye is Jackson Dart. And I like Jackson Dart. He's going to be among the quarterbacks that I own. I don't know optimal lineup. There's weather potentially in that game. We're getting into November here in Chicago. So potential rain and snow. But I don't know. Dealer's choice where you want to get it, either change from Daddle or change from Dart.
We could just do both of them if we really wanted to. What's your take on Daddle this week? And I honestly think a fade Tambo would end up being ownership dependent here. If he's going to come in at 30% owned, I don't have that big of a problem trying to fade him, and hopefully the chips fall in my favor. The Saints still have a pretty good run defense, and although Carolina's a 5.5 point favorite, here's a quick spoiler. I don't trust Carolina as a 5.5 point favorite because it's Carolina and they suck.
There is that. That's certainly the part that I was going to bring up is the game flow could flip. Again, I'm not going to be out on Dowdle. There's no need to completely fade him, especially if you have a portfolio of lineups. You want to take a underweight stance if he comes in at 30. I totally understand that. And I agree with you. That's the interesting thing. It's the Saints. They suck. They gave up Shaheed. They don't care, white flag, etc. But it's still a 5.5 point total. I know the Survivor folks out there this week are really loving the Panthers because when else would you play them? But we've seen how this ends sometimes, Pat, and it could be a bad way. So I'm not completely against your call there. And if you just didn't want to have a piece from this game in a bunch of lineups, I'd be fine with that too. And just move off them and not look for somebody else on this squad. Just move off completely.
Yeah, and the counter move to this would just be going to the betting market, John, and just go and tease up the Saints and tease down, tease the under. Just because I think the Saints can keep it close. I think this game is just going to be really low scoring. When we spoke about this last week, because I did that Rams onslaught, which almost, if Puka hadn't got hurt, I feel like it may have gotten there. But again, Saints have a good run defense. When in doubt, hey, if we're going to average 3 yards per carry, why don't we just throw it over the top of them? And that's going to work because they have no secondary, no pass defense. That's great when you're the Rams. When you're Carolina, who has no idea how to do that and no ability to do that, I just see this game being really close.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. I mean, there is a mindset that you should bet on quality, right? And I don't know that Carolina is quality. Rico Dowdle I think is a good running back, but certainly not an irreplaceable star or absolutely determined to be the centerpiece of the offense. So I do think that there is some mindset of this game could just go in a different direction, or it could go differently than we expect at all, and it may not be relevant for fantasy purposes.
So let's say we take out Dowdle. That leaves us $6,300 left. Obviously, we can manipulate everything, but what running backs would pop out to you around that range? Because it's Judkins for me, and it's not close.
Yeah, I think that's actually very reasonable. I'm seeing Judkins as not particularly highly owned. He's a little bit better priced on FanDuel actually. If you play there, but I think he's going under owned. The Jets just traded away their defense, so and this game has a low total, but Judkins is the Browns offense, and it's not clear that the Jets can stop anyone or are going to be able to stop anyone going forward.
Yeah, the Jets have a terrible run defense, Tambo. Judkins has been taken off the injury report. He's going to be fine. And we've seen that when he's fine, they have one play. Well, actually, they have 2 plays. They have turn it around and give it to Judkins and throw to Harold Fannin for 3 yards at a time.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I definitely don't hate it. He's in the mix for sure of the pool. I'm curious still on the other side of this game, actually, with the Jets, because Brees Hall was really going through it with those tweets. I know you're following along with Cust and everything on all the text groups, and the back end stuff makes for a lot of fun. But the Brees Hall is still in the mix for sure. And he's actually he's $500 cheaper than Judkins and $300 cheaper than Dowdle, who we talked about earlier. So I think he's the one that, I don't know. We'll see. Could end up getting a little bit squeezed here. Early projections do kind of like him, so maybe that's not the case by the time we get to Sunday. But I think Brees Hall is interesting because they can use him in a bunch of different ways and pretty much game script independent. He can get catch passes, he can get runs. I think he's fully capable. So I like both sides of this, but I kind of like the Hall side here too.
Yeah, so the Hall is interesting to me only because I have a lot of faith in the Cleveland defense, and I have zero faith in the offense for the Jets, that it could just be a whole lot of empty volume unless he starts picking up a ton of catches. And even the Browns have been really good at limiting running backs out of the backfield in terms of pass receptions, that it feels like if the Jets are going to move the ball on offense, it's going to be some sort of like Hail Mary deep pass to Garrett Wilson, or Fields is going to like make one guy miss and run for 70 yards. I just don't see them getting it done on the ground. Whereas on the opposite side, I have no faith that Cleveland can get it done through the air, but I know that they can run the ball. That's why I was just like Judkins, although he is at a higher price. And then when you get into Judkins, you have him at 65. Then at 66, you have Kyron Williams sitting there as well, who I think is... I think we're being duped a little bit by last week, what I talked about the Saints, where, oh no, look at the split between Corum and Kyron. Well, it's because they were playing a bunch of goobers. Like, should be a much more competitive game.
Yeah, and I would say too that I think there's the interesting component to the Williams spot is obviously opposite side of Christian McCaffrey, who's going to be popular once again because he beat the normal Christian McCaffrey things of like 24 points and put up a big game last week. And oftentimes, as we know, going through it on this show, people don't like to play two running backs against each other. And if they're deciding on one, they'll probably go to the CMC side and find money elsewhere. There's cheaper quarterbacks this week, cheaper receivers, tight ends. We saw two tight ends work last week with Loveland and Bowers. So I think you're onto something there, Pat. I think that could be the spot to go, right? Find that option there with Williams.
So what else would you like to do to this lineup? You had reservations about Dart John. Like, where would you like to start with a quarterback? Because I'm just looking at Lamar. I know he's a ton of money and we'd have to save somewhere else. But Lamar inside against Minnesota, when everyone just thinks that Minnesota has this amazing defense again, just give me Lamar in that matchup. Or even Drake May at 64. I think that's a nice matchup too for him.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I think the top quarterback is going to be Josh Allen. I think he's going to be the most highly owned. I think Lamar Jackson is absolutely up there. Like another quarterback that I think really needs consideration is JJ McCarthy at 4,900. If we're looking to save money, like he's a guy that people have been so high on. And I said this on the show last week, and then they went out and upset the Lions. But like people have been so high on him, and then like 2 games into his NFL career, he's completely forgotten about. And obviously, like injury situations are the reason for that. But like we know he's healthy going into this week. There's no reason to think he's going to be injured or limited or have a short leash or anything. So like I think JJ McCarthy, if we're looking to save money, and I do think, yeah, I mean I think Lamar is great, but I think that requires maybe a Zay Flowers or some additional considerations about the receiver. So yeah, let's start with McCarthy, and we've got some savings now.
Well, does that mean we have to turn Jackson Smith and Jigba into Justin Jefferson?
We could.
Do we have to?
Could you Jordan Addison
or Addison, or could you play McCarthy naked because he shockingly runs the ball and runs into the end zone?
I do think at 4,900 for a rushing quarterback, you don't necessarily need to pair him. I don't know. I usually do, and I would. Like you've got Jordan Addison there, just at like 5,400, right?
And
so
that works.
Like not a dramatic switch. And I think you've got TJ Hawkinson if you want to go to a tight end. Like I don't think Hawkinson is necessarily the player that he was. But he's only 3,300. He doesn't have to be.
So Tambo, let's keep messing around with this as we get some of the plays that we like. I've put in Kyron Williams for Judkins at the moment. Achane is still in here, but we don't have a Bill. That doesn't really, unless you're playing Josh Allen, is there a reason to play any Bill unless it's James Cook?
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I thought you were going to not give the latter line. I was going to say that's been the thing, right? If you're not on him, is to try and get that guy in there because he just seemingly finds a way to get it done. And he's 7,500, pretty good matchup going against the Dolphins, opposite side of Achane, who I think comes in at higher ownership at $100 less. So again, ownership could be close. Maybe we see it tighter than that, but I'll just say it is the opposite side for $100 more to go to James Cook over Achane in the exact same build.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see how we can finagle this a little bit. Are there any value running backs that anyone likes this week? Because, obviously, if somehow DeAndre Swift is going to be out again, Monungai would pop up. Trevian Henderson, John, is $5,600. He's projecting as a good value, but I just don't trust him to score fantasy points.
Yeah, but I'll say that last week on the show, Monday morning, I talked, my whole thesis about we got to do this or that because there are no value running backs, and we had like 3 of them by the end of the day, by the end of the Friday practice reports. But I do think that going in, I don't think there's necessarily any absolute value running backs. I don't know how much I trust the Patriots running back situation at all. So yeah, I don't know. The Tampa Bay run defense is not something I necessarily want to pick on in an uncertain situation. I think that some of the best value running backs are really Kyron Williams and Quinshon Judkins and Rico Dowdle. That's about where the value line kind of drops off for me.
What would be the lowest you'd be willing to go, Tambo, do you think? Because I am looking at Woody Marks at $5,100 or David Montgomery at $5,000. Just Montgomery in a big-time 8-point favorite matchup on the road, and Washington has no one left.
I've got 2 spots right now that I get for the cheap one. I'll answer first is easy. We'll wait on the Swift news, but even I still have interest in Monungai. I think everyone's going to just move away this week the minute he comes back. If Swift comes back, the minute he does. And I know there's a split and you don't love it, but like you said, if you're looking for cheaper options, not like we have a bunch right now. So if I was going cheap, I would consider that still and just take the risk. Especially in large field stuff. I don't hate your Woody Marks call if you want to go that route, but I actually think the opposite of Montgomery. I think Montgomery's situation is holding Gibbs's disappointment from last week in check. And the pricing didn't really, the pricing's interesting this week. 9,000 for McCaffrey, 8,000 for Gibbs. The quarterbacks you can already get for $7,000 for Josh Allen. They didn't really, they went back to the older pricing for whatever reason. Anyway, at least to me, it looks like. So for Gibbs at 8,000, I would rather find the money than save the money and hope that it's another Montgomery spot personally.
So we can almost do that here. We can go with Gibbs. We can throw him in. Then we'd have $6,900 for a receiver that has Nico Collins, Jalen Waddle. And we got rid of Achane, we could put Waddle in against the Bills, and we'd still have $500 left over to try to improve this. We'd have Cook with Waddle. I don't know what Washington player anyone wants to play at this point. Do you?
Not with Marcus Mariota.
How much is Mariota?
He's extremely cheap on FanDuel. He's the cheapest quarterback, but he's actually not really priced down on DraftKings. I don't know that we need to go there. He's more expensive than JJ McCarthy. Yeah,
he's $5,300, although in a nice pass situation where we have him for his legs, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. So that leaves us with Jawan Jennings in here right now to go opposite of Kyron Williams, so that works out. We have Addison with JJ McCarthy. We have Hunter Henry at $3,500 here, and the Jags D Tambo at $2,600. Is there a spot there that you would like to improve?
That's what I was trying to look at. I couldn't really see. I was trying to see if about instead of Waddle, putting in Zay. Zay is also only 5,900. And if we're not getting to Lamar, let's still try and get something to push this thing back and forth. And I feel better about it with Zay than I do with a Mark Andrews or trying to pick through that situation. So I was trying to do that and then spend that last 1,000 how you see fit.
Well, instead of Zay, you could keep Waddle and turn Henry into Andrews for $100 less. So then we'd have $600 left over. And then we're just kind of wasting the onesie spot on Mark Andrews, hoping he scores a touchdown or two. And that's kind of the score. That and Derrick Henry and, random dudes on the Ravens are where you would end up getting your scoring from to push it that way. I
talk about this a ton, and anything can work. So it's not right or wrong. It's just I don't actually like that. Because I think if you're one-off like that with a Andrews, well, he is filling a onesie position and he fits your stack. Alex and I talk about this a ton on Leverage Lane each week on Saturdays. It's if he actually pushes it enough to break the onesie position, it's probably 2 touchdowns. If he's got 2, would that still help that game environment? Yes. But man, what else does Lamar have under his belt at that point? You almost need a perfect storm of that's it. And $7,000 Lamar or $6,800 Lamar gets held in check beyond it. But what if he has 60 on the ground, a rushing, all that? I think you'd say bye-bye to your McCarthy lineup pretty quickly, or at least possibility of it. So I prefer someone like Zay to push it, get the 100 yards plus a touchdown, doesn't necessarily crush it for the other spot. And then you could still use it up on something different.
What's your take on that, John, about that sort of strategy of potentially trying to save money? Because what my thought process was, because I'm playing in a $4,700 tournament in a 10 max here, is that I don't need Andrews to break the slate. I just need to get something out of him. If I can get like 13 points out of him, I don't know if that's good enough, but in my mind it would be, but maybe I'm dead wrong about that.
No, I think that's like good insight about like different contest sizes that I do think that like if I'm doing a run back for like on the opposite team for my quarterback, like I want to prioritize receptions, right? Because if it's 3 touchdowns, well, I needed that quarterback probably, not necessarily the receptions, right? But like Zay Flowers can probably get there more with like, he could get 8 receptions, 100 yards. And maybe he doesn't even get in the end zone. And like, it doesn't necessarily mean Lamar Jackson is having like a standout game. So we're actually better having JJ McCarthy there at 4,900. Whereas like, if you're going with the more touchdown dependent player, like Mark Andrews is not going to like break free for like a bunch of long yardage and a pile up receptions kind of game, but he could be like the red zone target that gets a bunch of touchdowns. But he's also cheap. So like if you are going with a smaller size contest, like maybe just 1 touchdown, like that's great for a cheap tight end in a smaller contest where you don't necessarily have to hit the absolute optimal tight end for the price.
Well, let's talk about some cheaper wide receivers. Jennings is the cheapest receiver here, and he does go hand in hand with Kyren Williams in this matchup as one side and the other. But it doesn't seem like Kayshon Boutte is going to play Tambo for the Patriots. Demario Douglas is $4,000. Does that have any interest for you?
I think if I was stacking Drake May, then I'll go back to that. But I want to add one more point, actually, because we're probably going to go to Drake May stacks at some point anyway. But just noting it, like the other thing is Hawkinson is $100 cheaper than Andrews and fits in with your stack. So again, like if I was doing this, there's a pretty nice build here. If you just finish it go with your Zay, Jennings, Addison, fit in Hawkinson, and then take your defense up to the Bills against Tua, and you've got the nuts. You've got a 3-1, you got a secondary, you got the Bills with Cook, and then you've got Jamar Gibbs. Maybe it's not the nuts. I'm saying like from a good build, whether small field, large field, whatever, this is 7 or 8 points off your original projection of an optimal, but it's a lineup built around a JJ McCarthy stack that makes a ton of sense now. And you've got Addison, Hawkinson, no Jefferson because you sort of got your running back pay-ups instead. And you got Williams across from Jennings. You've got Cook paired with his defense if you take the Jags up to the Bills and leave $100 on the table. And then you've got your one-off in Jahmyr Gibbs as a piece of that Detroit game where, what did I see they had? It's like a 30-point team total or something. So hopefully Gibbs bounces back. But I just took the Jags up to the Bills in this spot and finished it.
So there are 2 ways that you can do this. Obviously, the Bills lost 2 defenders last week, John, and Joey Bosa's on the injury report, and they were generating a ton of pressure. Maybe that's not going to be so much, and Ed Oliver is out as well. Against the Dolphins, it probably doesn't matter because like me and the 3 of us running a 3-4 could probably get through that offensive line at this point because it's not good. But you could take the Jags up to the Lions instead, who are not projecting for a ton of ownership at the moment. They're 8-point favorites on the road. That means you're going to have Mariota passing. Their offensive line is banged up. Their offense sucks in general at the moment. Maybe that's the move instead of just going with what I would guess to be a chalkier Bills with the defense I like a little bit more too. Like Aiden Hutchinson isn't hurt. That might be good enough.
Yeah, I'll say I like the Lions idea. The memory of Marcus Mariota coming in a couple of games ago in relief of Jaden Daniels and immediately throwing a pick 6 against Dallas. It's like kind of entrenched in my memory because I really wanted that game to be high scoring. I like the idea of the Lions defense. I don't mind Mariota as a quarterback for the price with his rushing ability. Like he can just get a rushing touchdown and he's like, going a long way to paying off his price. I might probably like the Lions defense a little bit better, as does the Vegas odds.
Yeah, the odds like it a little bit better. Projections, projections for defense are kind of stupid anyway, but the projections, because they like them slightly more than the Bills in this point, Tambo, I'm going to say the Lions.
Yeah, I mean, either or. If I was doing that, I would actually move Cook to Justin Jefferson at this point and just run a 4-1 and just go off with McCarthy pass game, especially if you're talking about a smaller field now. Why not? It's if he actually has a big game, now you got all of his passing attack and you've got a run back to push it. You've got the defense with your running back. You've got a secondary. You kind of cover all the angles and then you just do it that way. I'd be more than comfortable, especially in a smaller field.
Yeah, I guess we're not using the James Cook for the Bills anymore, but you could go take Flowers out, turn him into Waddle, and use the flex as Derrick Henry as well, if that's the way that you wanted to do it.
Yep.
I like the overstack. I mean, the game's got a 49-point total.
Indoors,
so
too.
The Baltimore, Minnesota, like overstack. Yeah, with Justin Jefferson. I think that looks great.
All right, so let's do that. So that's the JJ McCarthy working off the optimal build. We got to the plays that we like. We tried to correlate that. I think that's looking pretty good at the moment. So it's JJ McCarthy, Kyron, and Gibbs at running back. Addison, Hawkinson, and Jefferson to go along with him with a Zay Flowers bring back. Then you have Juwan Jennings to save some money at $4,600 as a pair across from Kyron Williams. Then you paired the Lions defense with Jahmyr Gibbs, and hopefully this ends up winning because I would like to win some money. Hopefully you can win some money too, because then you could afford a Helix mattress, which I'll tell you about right now. You know how much time I spend researching bets and lineups and shows and getting everything ready for you? So when it's actually time to sleep, I need it to count. That's why I switched to a Helix mattress, and honestly, game changer. I have Helix mattresses all over my house. My wife and I have one. The guest room has one. My kids have one. I got a kid on the way, and eventually they're going to have one too. Even Jared over at the studio living there, I got him a Helix mattress as well. Populated with Helix, you need to do it too. I used to wake up with a stiff back and night sweats. Now I just sleep through the night. No tossing around, no overheating. It's just comfortable and supportive. I took their quiz, I tailored it to myself, and boom, I got exactly what I needed from the mattress I deserve. I think you deserve a nice one too. So go to helixsleep.com/Mayo for 27% off and exclusive to Pat Mayo Experience listeners. That's helixsleep.com/Mayo for 27% off. Make sure to enter my show name after checkout so they know I sent you. helixsleep.com/Mayo. You know that moment before the night out when you're excited but also thinking, tomorrow might be rough. Yeah, I've been there. Sure have. And that's why I've started using pre-alcohol from ZBiotics. Total game changer. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, built by PhD scientists to tackle those tough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol creates an unwanted byproduct in your gut, and that's what makes it hard the next day. Pre-alcohol is designed to break down that byproduct. Now, I drink pre-alcohol as my first drink of the night, and the next morning, good to go. So if you want to enjoy every day, head to zbiotics.com/PatMayo and use code PatMayo for 15% off your first order. And it's backed by a 100% money-back guarantee. So there's no risk, only better mornings. Coming back, Tambo, you were off last week, so it's to you. What game would you like to start with? What quarterback would you like to start with? And we will build that out.
Yeah, I was gonna go to the Lamar spot to start, and then John took us to the other side, which I don't mind. I turned out I love those lineups, and I think they work really well. I guess like we said earlier, we can go to the Drake May spot if you want. You want to talk about Pop Douglas? We can sort of double down there and get after it that way, and maybe we put somebody else in there too. If the Hunter Henry play could stay, maybe.
Yeah, who would you put Diggs or would you put Hunter Henry here, John? Or would you be like, hey, man, Mac Hollins is going to see like an uptick in snap shares this week. Maybe we go to him.
I think you can do like Diggs and Henry. To set the context, like Kayshon Boutte looking like he's probably going to miss this game. So that leaves the rest of the Patriots wide receivers and pass catchers underpriced. And at Hunter Henry at 3,500, he's such a red zone target for Drake May. He's kind of like a favored target at the tight end spot. He's only 3,500. Like he's underpriced as it is. You remove Kayshon Boutte and there's potentially more offensive opportunities for him. But I also think that like Diggs is probably going to see the biggest uptick, and then Demario Douglas, is cheap as well at 4K. I would kind of prioritize them probably like Hunter Henry just for the opportunity cost, like the lower opportunity cost that you don't have to waste a wide receiver spot, and then Diggs, and then probably Douglas.
Yeah, if I am playing the 10 max Tambo, do I need a 4-man stack with the Patriots, or should I pick and choose?
I think we've had these conversations before, but for those that haven't heard them, my take would be, since we're flipping to these smaller field stuff, is like that's where it's more likely to get away with it. Like if you make a mistake with those 4 receivers in a large field, you're probably going to have somebody that outdoes you in a 160,000 person $20 Millie Maker. Someone probably fills in for your Douglas with a better play, or your Diggs with another play that beats it. So you're covered. But in a smaller field, if they just, if Douglas has 14, which is pretty solid, it's not like slate breaking, but it's good for 4K. And then Diggs has, 18, it's good but not great. You might still get away with it if everything else clicks just perfectly, but in a large field you won't have it because somebody has the exact spot everywhere covered. So I'm fine with it, but I think it's interesting what you want to do on the Tampa Bay side here that can kind of dictate this, because Rachaad White is 6,400. I know, I'm just telling you, it's not about again, you don't want the guy. Everyone out there wants to talk about the play. I'm talking about the theory. He's squeezed between your Judkins, Dowdles, etc. of the world, where it could be a way to naturally separate yourself. But then obviously Egbuka is just 7K. Tez Johnson, who we've liked in the past, is 4,500. Maybe that sets up better for you.
Yeah, so for me, I just have a very strict rule, John, of don't play opposing running backs against the Patriots. It just doesn't work. It has not worked out yet this year. Maybe this is the week. Who knows? But I'm not too concerned about, Dowdle, I didn't want to play anyway, just because of the ownership. I don't think I need to go to Rachaad White if I wanted to use Judkins or Kyron Williams or Breece Hall. I just don't know if that ownership is going to be that much different, where I would like to either get up to Egbuka or, again, just take that value with Tez in that $4,600 spot, and then we can just put in whatever 3 running backs we want.
Yeah, I'm really conflicted on Rachaad White this week. I started doing my positional rankings, and I do, a blurb for each player. And I had Rachaad White. I think he's projecting pretty well. The game's got a decently high total. So, he's the primary guy there. So I keep, had Rachaad White pretty high in my rankings, and I just could not find a blurb that works with the Patriots allowing the fewest rushing yards in the league, 10 less rushing yards than the next lowest team. I think Tez is the answer here at 4,500.
So Tez. So let's throw in Tez and then see what we got. So if now we have 6,450 left, let's just throw in a fake defense here, just like a median defense. We'll throw in Browns defense at $2,900. That would get us to 7,600 for 3 more spots, 2 running backs and a flex. What do you think, Tambo, is the best way to allocate that sort of money? Who is the best play that we can get here? Is it McCaffrey?
Yeah, you might run out of. You'll get a completely different build. I think you will have to go like McCaffrey. Again, you could do something different with the flex, I guess, so never mind. But yeah, you could go maybe McCaffrey, Gibbs, and Judkins.
You could go Judkins, McCaffrey, A-Chain if you wanted to.
Yeah, let's try that. Let's try that.
That fits perfectly with the Browns defense. Now, we don't need to be tied to the Browns defense, but it does work in conjunction with Judkins.
Yeah, going up against the Jets, never a bad thing after their fire sale. So I don't hate something like that. Just noting it. That's what I was looking for, is what would you end up on? And it's a bit of a different build, because how many will have, I don't know how many will have McCaffrey, where, someone like a Judkins Dowdle range is your third. I'm not sure how many lineups will end up like that with two running backs over the top in price point. So I think that makes it interesting as well.
So that's one way you can do it. Let's go to you, John, with that $7,600, 2 running backs and a flex. How would you like to plug that in?
So I like McCaffrey, and I'll say that I think he's going to be highly owned, but in this kind of Drake May overstack, I don't think we need to worry about the ownership. So I don't mind the idea of starting with Christian McCaffrey. I do think Achan's in a good spot this week. I'm probably use him a little bit more in Josh Allen builds, but he's got the receptions built in. And then where does that leave us?
That leaves us at
Did I just create the same lineup? Yeah. So maybe I just like the one we had.
What if we don't use HA? Do you guys have any aversion to going McCaffrey with Kyron Williams, or trying to find a Ram to stick in there?
I don't know. I guess I'm with John. I like the first build, and you had it too, Pat. So we're on the same page. But I would actually maybe be looking now to see what happens if I change Tez Johnson to Egbuka, for example, and see if I can find it that way.
All right, let's go to Egbuka and take out Tez Johnson. You could put Judkins back in, and then you have $4,900 for a flex. It's going to be a wide receiver, presumably. Maybe it's a tight end that we end up going to, but there's no running backs at that price point that we really want. The best players available then would be Jameson Williams, Jerome Ford. You know who is back is my main man, Tillman, $3,500. He's going to play this week. You probably don't want him with Dylon Gabriel at quarterback, but I thought it was interesting. He's back. Maybe he's the catalyst that makes the Browns offense go. Who knows? But Jacoby Myers, Parker Washington's at $4,700. These are the types of names that we're doing now. If you could just get Juwan Jennings at $4,600, but then we have 2 49ers.
We're $100 away from David Montgomery.
We don't need to play Browns D. That's another part of this too. And if, let's say, we go to that $5,000 range where you said, $100 gets us David Montgomery, $5,100 gets us to Shakir. Woody Marks is there. I don't know if I want to play Shaheed the first time around. I actually really like Marvin Harrison Jr. this week. I don't think anyone's going to play him, but I think with Jacoby Brissett, that's where they're looking for down the field. We have no other Seahawk to go along with it, but as a one-off, I think you could do a lot worse. Would it be David Montgomery for you, John, of anyone in that range?
I think he's a good play, right? If we're not, necessarily using like Jahmyr Gibbs or any other Lion, the Lions are going to clearly score points. They're at home. It's a pretty easy picture to see David Montgomery getting at least one touchdown against this Commanders. Or sorry, they're not playing at home, but they're on the road. It's a pretty easy picture to see that David Montgomery getting at least one touchdown against this Commanders defense.
Where would it be if we had $5,000 to play with here, Tambo, or up to $5,300? What do we do with our flex in a lineup like this?
I think he's got it. I think it's just the defense is where you change it. Can you just go, do you want, you're not playing anybody from the Rams, so can you just play the 49ers D and say we'll go against that spot and use it with McCaffrey instead of, you were going to use Cleveland with Judkins for pretty much the same reason, not really, but just in general. So I'd be fine with that. And you just get Montgomery in there. Like I said, I definitely am considering Gibbs a lot more, but the point is if you're landing there already, that's when, like I say all the time, I don't care about the plays anymore, because if they're going to put up 30, I kind of want to keep that in the back of my mind when I'm building my lineup. So I don't think it's a fluke or a false number on the Lions this week. I know many saw the Vikings take care of them last week and maybe do think that, but I think there's going to be a good bounce back spot here. And I think, the 30 points are likely for them. So why not put Montgomery in there in this position with this lineup?
So we had one 3v3 in this lineup and then a 2v2 that we can talk about as well. The 3v3 was actually not really a 3v3. It's a Egbuka and David Montgomery and 49ers defense. Could have been Tez Johnson, Devin Achane, and the Browns defense. Or in this one, you could have 49ers D and McCaffrey, or you could go Gibbs and Lions D. I think that fits almost perfectly as a swap if you wanted.
If you go, what was the Gibbs one?
If you take McCaffrey out and go to Gibbs, you can turn 49ers into Lions. Then you'd have to figure out what to do with David Montgomery.
Yeah. I still think it's the first one, just because I'm fine with Tez. And I think when you have Achane and that D and everything there against the Jets, that probably makes a lot more sense, at least on paper.
What do you make of it, John? Is there any variations of what we just talked about that works for you better? Or is it just back to the one that we kind of landed on to begin with?
It's the first one. It's the one that I accidentally got to when it was intentionally trying to make it different.
All right, well, let's enter that one. We'll move on to the next lineup. I do want to explore this Lamar lineup with you, Tambo, because we did do the JJ side. We'll do the Lamar side. Much like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, I just find Lamar's tough to pair someone up with.
Yeah, my take was going to be, like I said, I kind of got my thoughts out on it because John got us to the McCarthy side, but that's why I wanted to talk about Zay at 5,900. I also wanted to be on record early that the Ravens come back, win the AFC North, and get there somehow in the playoffs. It's not stopping. This is the easiest schedule ever for the Ravens as long as they stay healthy. And this is the first week the Ravens have nothing on their injury report, nothing on either side of the ball. So I think there's a possibility. And the Vikings just won their freaking Super Bowl last week against Detroit. It's that's huge. Now they come back and just get punished by the Ravens. So I think there's going to be points scored here. You just got to put it together. But I think you start with Lamar and Zay and then maybe get Mark Andrews in there as well. That's how we do that lineup with Mark Andrews.
Would you like Mark Andrews in this one, John?
Yeah, I think it's Zay all day to start. But I agree if you're playing Lamar Jackson. And I don't think Lamar Jackson is obviously not a quarterback. You need to double stack because he can't do anything on the ground. He could add rushing points as well. But the opportunity cost of the tight end position has been pretty small so far this season. And at 3,400, that Mark Andrews is a favored target of Lamar Jackson. Two touchdowns last week. Absolutely at 3,400. This stack is way cheaper than it should be.
Yeah. Does that mean we go to Jefferson, Addison? We don't have the health status fully yet of Aaron Jones, so it could be Jordan Mason as the primary back. We don't know that yet. Even if that was the case, I don't know how much I would like it. I think for me, it would be John between Addison and Jefferson.
Yeah, and I'll say I think for the price, I actually like Addison better. I mean, it's a substantial savings. Lamar is a pricier quarterback. I'd start with Addison, and if we end up finding the $2,500, I'd go up to Justin Jefferson, but I would start with the $5,400 for Addison.
Well, the $7,900 Tambo is probably better allocated for a running back spot if that's the money that we had.
That's what's happening here. John nailed it again. It's the whole point of this week is currently until we get value. Would I like Jefferson? Yes, but we have to still factor in price and opportunity and all these other factors. Addison's just simply going to make for a much better lineup that there's not many holes that you can poke in it. And then if a couple of the guys you get in there because of that end up having ceiling outcomes, you've just got that much more tacked on top as well. So it's not like you're risking 2 or 3 options. You kind of can build a lineup that has no holes at all and just feels good building it.
So Philly Phantom in the chat says that James Cook feels like a topic on Leverage Lane. What time does that start at tomorrow, Tambo?
10 a.m. Eastern every Saturday. Alex Blickel and myself on the Ship It Nation YouTube station. We'll break it all down. It's focused on GPPs, but more from a single entry perspective.
Okay. But he says that James Cook opposing the chalk running back again, but actually being on the actual favored team at 10% owned versus like 30% owned. James Cook does make a ton of sense here in a lineup that doesn't
Josh Allen's ownership, especially in a Lamar lineup. It's like you're doubling down. You're going against the quarterback that costs 200 more at ownership. And that, again, that's like a levels to it type thing when we're talking about, but that's a thought where people are like, well, what does James Cook have to do with Lamar Jackson? It's Lamar is 200 less than Josh Allen. So you're sort of doubling and tripling down in these cases of putting these options in.
So when it's James Cook, John, does that mean Waddle? Does that mean Achane? Like, how do you put a Dolphin in here if you need to put a Dolphin in here? How much is Dulcich?
I don't know that you need
$2,600 for Greg Dulcich. There we go. What a hero.
That's a value, but I don't know that you need a Dolphin. I just because you're like James Cook could just pile up the yards, and I will say that actually like James Cook has I think 1 target the last 3 weeks. So and that doesn't mean I don't like James Cook as a play because one of those weeks that he got 0 targets, he put up 216 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns for 36 DraftKings points. But like playing James Cook maybe means that the Bills are just eating up the clock on the ground. And scoring some touchdowns as well. So I don't know that you necessarily need like an Echan or a Waddle to oppose that. If I'm playing Josh Allen, maybe I want a Dolphin run back, but I don't know that I need one because I'm playing James Cook.
Does that work out for you, Tambo? Does that make sense?
Yes, I think, like I said, my take on the James Cook stuff was just to Philly Phantom's point of where this becomes a thought in the tournaments that you're playing in, because the combination of those two should be something that makes sense, but to others it may not stand out because they don't see a correlation between them. The correlation is the game that we play and the pricing that's out there. So, and the ownership in this case as well. So we don't need him, but he definitely makes sense from that perspective.
So how do we fill out the rest of this? Obviously, we have a defense to put in, so that'll boost our average remaining, but we do need a cheaper player in here somewhere. It does feel like receiver is the spot to go to. And I think the 2 options right now, John, that have stuck out the most have been Jawan Jennings and Pop Douglas. Although, I told you last week I like Parker Washington. I don't hate him even in a bad matchup this week.
Yeah, Parker Washington $1,000 more expensive than last week, but like that might not be a bad price. The concern there, I think, is like Jacoby Myers. Like, are they like getting him ramped up, like worked in? Like he may not play like a full game. In which case Parker Washington looks great. We probably don't know until the end of the game, like everybody other player, right? How it's going to turn out. I think you actually hit the nail on the head with Jawan Jennings because it's looking like a lineup where we're not going to get Christian McCaffrey. So like, yeah, maybe if like Jawan Jennings finally like kind of breaks out with a long touchdown, or he's just, at 4,600, he doesn't need like a monster game. But like every Jawan Jennings opportunity is maybe taking a little bit away from Christian McCaffrey, who's going to be a chalk player that we're probably not going to get in this lineup.
Of note, Tambo, from the Mayo Media newsletter this week under the rankings, also up on 4for4.com, completely free, the player tidbits that I have in here. This one about Michael Wilson, 1.46 yards per route with Jacoby Brissett under center this season and 0.35 with Kyler Murray. Michael Wilson is super cheap if that could get you access to Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah, I want to get to that one next. I'll round this one out for you quick with just an example if you want to get it. And you can go with your Williams across from Jennings. You can pop James Cook over to Judkins.
Oh, we're taking out James Cook?
Yeah, it's fine. We talked through it. People get it, but in this, I'll just show you this one. You might like it, so I'll give it to you. Browns D, to go with Judkins, like we said earlier. I just did this and it landed on, to me, what was pretty exciting because he's right in front of you and it just finishes the stack.
What do we do with that? But if this is the case and we have Jefferson and Addison in, isn't this just more of a McCarthy lineup than a Lamar lineup? Or
well, no, because that's the whole premise of it is like if it's the opposite of what we talked about earlier is now if you have Andrews needed and Zay needed and it leads back to Lamar doing more, it's just those are the guys that push it. And yes, anybody could look at this and go swap and get almost $2,000 back with McCarthy, but this is the prime example of sometimes people do that and then realize, oh shit, I needed the other side. And we still have no holes across the lineup, really. You've got a nice Williams, Jennings. All this popped in the original optimal. So, of course, you could just flip it right now and make your one upgrade, but that would be fine too. Because really, if you save this one, go back, because we've been on these guys anyway, take Lamar to JJ. Then do you want to pop up Judkins?
Let's see here. Go to JJ. J.J. I'll just type in McCarthy. That's much easier. All right, there we go. Yeah, now we have $1,900. Yeah. Based on what you said before, we probably lose Andrews, don't we?
Yeah.
Just put Zay as the run back. You turn Judkins into like. Let's just put in Henry. Actually, now we can put in Dulcich. There we go. Now we have the best tight end on the slate and $9,200. Look at that.
Maybe
probably don't need Dulcich. You could go, I don't know, let's just put in McCaffrey and see what happens. You go McCaffrey, you have $2,800 left for a tight end. Actually, that would be Dulcich if you wanted to go that way. I don't know how this works out. John, what would you do here now that we have 79 because we've taken out Lamar for this spot and Andrews?
I'll say I might have liked the Lamar version better, but now that I'm seeing the low ownership that JJ McCarthy's going to get, because when people type in JJ, they're not going to find McCarthy. I don't know, like JJ McCarthy maybe moving up my positional rankings. Let's see here. So yeah, I agree with taking out Andrews, right? Because like if we've got both Addison and Jefferson, I think it is a McCarthy lineup. We don't necessarily need Andrews, as we kind of discussed earlier. There's a possibility I end up making that same lineup again. Let's see. So yeah, I actually do like the idea of James Cook. I think there's a thought process. I've mentioned this on previous weeks. Like you've got one team out there with a big 30-point implied point total. They're going to score. So like, where do the points come? They're going to come from somewhere. So like, you should maybe be thinking, like, if I'm not playing Josh Allen, that I really need to consider playing James Cook. I don't mind Dulcich as the as a cheaper tight end for the Dolphins. And then 6,300. Rico Dowdle. He's a guy I like. I know you were a little bit down on him earlier. But for like exactly 6,300, that's probably where I would go.
Yeah, do you think it's better to go Dowdle? Because you like Monungai here. I mean, I don't think DeAndre Swift is a terrible play either, Tambo. If he's actually healthy and back, like maybe just use him or use Rome Odunze at $6,000.
Yeah, his dad says he's the best player in the league. So you got to make sure. But I saw like even Schefter had to circle back on that today and post that it's not how Rome actually feels. His dad's opinions are of his own. But there's some crazy stats on Rome. I think one interesting thing we didn't get there, but earlier talking about with the optimal with Dart is the opposite side of K. I mean, I talked about this last week. I know I couldn't make this show last week. I had something going on, but the Bears, when a team like the Bears has a team total of almost 27 or whatever it was last week, you have to put that on your radar. And they have it again this week at home against the Giants. So it may be the only two games all season that we see go back and forth like that for the Bears. But this is another spot I think that you could consider something like a Caleb Williams, a Rome, whatever else you want to put with it, and then figure it out from the other side, whether it's Robinson, Slayton, whatever you decide on the Giant side as a way to flip that build a little bit too.
I'm trying to see, does anyone else fit in here? This mid $5,000 range, John, is awful.
Yeah, but we'll see how injuries shake things up.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. So that's the JJ McCarthy version of what we can do for that. I want to take a quick break and come back with Seattle and Arizona and Chicago and the Giants and try to build out the Caleb Williams side. If anyone has any questions, sub to the channel because you need to be subbed. Dump them in now, and we'll get to those as well. Stay tuned. Somewhat surprisingly, I actually take tailgating very seriously. Grill fired up, cooler packed, and yeah, I'm the guy everyone counts on for the food. Whether that's my home barbecues, birthdays, tailgating, doesn't matter what it is, Pat Mayo is always relied upon for bringing the food. That's why I go with Omaha Steaks, the official sponsor of tailgating. They've been America's original butcher for over a century, and everything they send is top-notch, perfectly aged steaks, juicy burgers, those thick, deli-style franks, all delivered directly to your door. I tossed the ribeyes on the grill last weekend. Crazy tender, amazing flavor, and you can taste the quality. There's no off-season for flavor here. Make your next game day delicious with Omaha Steaks. Just head to omahasteaks.com and use promo code MAYO at checkout for $35 off your order. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code MAYO. Terms apply. See site for details. For over a century, Johnnie Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereux Golf, Johnnie Walker introduces the Johnnie Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnniewalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. The days are getting shorter and it's easy to feel like the world's getting a little darker, too. This time of year can be tough, especially when life gets busy. So BetterHelp is encouraging everyone to reach out, check in on your friends, reconnect with family, or grab a coffee with someone from your team or a friend that you haven't seen in a while. Just like sending that first message, starting therapy can feel hard, but taking that step is almost always worth it. You might even find yourself wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 5 million people served, BetterHelp is one of the world's largest online therapy platforms. They help you match with a therapist based on your needs so you can focus on your goals, not the search. If the fit's not right, you can switch anytime. This month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it easy to take that first step. My listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/PatMayo. That's BetterHelp.com/PatMayo. Reach out, connect, and remember, you're not alone. Seattle and Arizona is up next. There's a bunch of totals in these games that are from 46.5 and above, but not one standing out above the other. I put in Sam Darnold with Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I threw in Rashid Shaheed Tambo, who just got acquired. Do you think he's going to run enough routes to matter for DK this week?
Oh, man. I don't know. I don't really have interest in trying to figure it out, but yeah, I liked your takes earlier on this game. I guess I know the Seahawks side, you could go that way, but I just like trying to make JSN work with the Arizona stack side. We already had Trey McBride in the optimal off the top of the show. You mentioned the Michael Wilson stats. You mentioned liking Marv Harrison. Like there's a lot of reasons to make that happen. So I kind of have interest in going the other side and just getting JSN on the run back.
So we go Brissett, Michael Wilson, McBride with JSN. What would be your preferred way to do this, John?
I'll be honest, it would be with Sam Darnold, but we're not going in that direction. Like
we can. Tambo likes one side. If you like the Darnold side, we can build out both these sides. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I just like he's got 4 passing touchdowns in 2 games already this season. It's gonna be a situation where we look back at the end of the year and go like, why didn't we just play Sam Darnold at that price every week? He's kind of having like a Baker Mayfield season from last year, where it's like Baker could never project that well because he's like not adding a ton of rushing yards, but he's just constantly over his passing touchdown, prop line or whatever. So I like the Sam Darnold side, and they're the favored team. They're playing at home as the favored team. So like maybe like him more than Jacoby Brissett. But I'll say I like Michael Wilson there. I don't mind Marvin Harrison either. If we have the money to get to Marvin Harrison, but like Michael Wilson's like way too cheap at 3,300.
Like could you play? What is the stack with Darnold? So it's just Darnold, JSN. Would you throw another Seahawk in there?
I don't know that I would. I think that like Darnold's gonna get some passing touchdowns. I think Jackson Smith and Jigga is probably going to be one of them. If I was going to throw in another Seahawks pass catcher, it might be the tight end. I think AJ Barner limited in practice on Thursday, but he's only 3,100, and he's actually gotten some long touchdowns, and he's 4 touchdowns on the season. So I might go to AJ Barner at 3,100, and then we might have to adjust if he can't suit up.
I think if I was going to play the Darnold lineup, Tambo, that I would use Shaheed. This shouldn't be that big of a deal for him integrating into this offense. It's the Clint Kubiak offense. Clint Kubiak, obviously the OC for the Saints a year ago. And Sam Darnold throwing deep down the field of 15 yards and more, ranks top 5 in yards per attempt, fantasy points per game, completion percentage, passer rating, touchdown pass rate. And it feels like he's only on this team to do 2 things. Well, maybe he'll return punts. Who knows? Bubble screens and run the 9 route.
Yeah. First of all, like I said, maybe he will just return to seeing ghosts, and that could always happen. Everyone's watching him off the primetime game where you could literally hit everyone. It wasn't just Bart. He hit Arroyo. He hit Horton. The other interesting note that at least gives some validity to, paying the 5,200 and just hoping Shaheed does what he does and gets open is that Horton was downgraded 14 hours ago by the latest news. So he was a non-participant in practice on Thursday. So if you look at that, maybe Shaheed does just come in and get it done. I liked Arroyo coming into the season. If Barner's out, I think he's interesting. Right now, though, as it stands, if all those guys were in the mix, it makes it almost like a mini Mahomes situation because it's obviously Darnold and JSN, but then is it Shaheed? Is it Horton? Is it Barner? Is it Arroyo? Who else could it be? But I like JSN and just picking one more after that. So if you want to try Shaheed, I'm happy to do so and then hope we get the Horton news and he's out. And then you'd end up having a really good starting point. You could still get to McBride if you wanted him.
Yeah, so John, with this Darnold lineup, I have Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison in here as well. Would you just drop one of those guys? We might have to drop Marv and use the $3,300 Michael Wilson just to make this work.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I will make an argument in favor of Shaheed. There's actually a couple of arguments. One, there's uncertainty, and people are going to be afraid to lean into it because he just got acquired. Who knows how quickly is he going to get integrated into the team? But I'll say he's a speedster, right? He's a guy that can just catch a screen pass. That doesn't need a whole lot of ramp up and learning, about the Seahawks offense to, just kind of trickle out and get a screen and take it to that house. So I think there's a couple of arguments for using Rashid Shaheed, especially if we're using Sam Darnold.
If we try to fill the rest out of this Darnold one, then we'll switch back to the Brissett side of this. So Darnold, JSN, Michael Wilson, and Shaheed. I guess theoretically we could work Marv, or we could work in DeMercado. We don't want to work in DeMercado, or McBride or Marvin Harrison into this Tambo. Would you go one of those routes, or just take a cheap tight end, throw him in, and then try to build out our running backs?
Oh, I was looking at a bunch of stuff over here to try and see if I could figure it out. It just, I think it's, man, as you have it now, that at least gives us money to spend. I think you kind of got to just figure out what else you want to get in here from a running back perspective. Like you liked Judkins, you liked Williams, and then start to see that. Okay, now plug in what was the defense you were using that was cheap? Like if you were putting the Jags, or you liked the what do we have in there? Browns with Judkins. That leaves you
Browns. I think Giants could work.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. McBride leaves us back in that $5,100 range. If you went like Browns, McBride, you could go back to Montgomery or something. But yeah, I don't know that I fully love it. And I'm thinking curiosity at least is seeing the Barner $3,100 in there to at least fill out the stack and just hope Darnold does what he did last game. And then hopefully we get, if Horton was out, that would really make it even better because that's kind of most of the pass catchers outside of Arroyo who could get there for Barner instead, but I would rather just keep it as Barner, like John said.
Yeah, we could fill this out. Judkins, Kyron, Gibbs, Barner, and Browns D.
Yeah, I would rather do that. Me personally, I like that.
What are your thoughts, John, of how to reconstruct this to fill out this lineup?
I don't know if we need Gibbs. If I'm going to make a change here, it would probably be drop down Gibbs. I don't know now what I'm doing with the money.
It's just I threw in Gibbs because
you could go with James Cook and the Lions instead.
Yeah, that I kind of like that.
James Cook and the Lions. Yeah, I mean that 2v2 works out perfectly. Now that we have James Cook, should we throw in Dulcich instead of Barner?
Could try that. Yeah.
It gives us another $500 to play around with if we really wanted to. And then we could actually, if we went with Dulcich, I guess then we wouldn't have James Cook. I was like, hey, we could take Cook back up to Gibbs if we wanted to, but we don't need to. If you didn't want to use Kyron, if we just take a look at the flex spot here, you can get as high as 7,100. So Egbuka would be like the next best person that you could get in. Egbuka, Derrick Henry, Nico Collins. We could upgrade to those spots if we wanted to, or we could go James Cook, and I guess we have Dulcich, and you could use Bill's D too. I don't know. This one's tough. Just trying to figure out the rest of it.
Yeah. I would say that I like the idea of the AJ Barner just because it's like we've got that quarterback, right? Like an AJ Barner touchdown like elevates that lineup so much because we've got Sam Darnold. So now we're assuming JSN's already like piling up receptions and yardage and hopefully a touchdown. We're assuming she takes one to the house. If we've got Barner in there and he gets a touchdown, then it's like wheels up for this lineup because that means Sam Darnold's having an outlier performance. And that Michael Wilson at 3,300 and maybe getting an additional couple of long targets as they try to climb back. So I kind of like this lineup.
So here in front of us. Yeah, we keep Cook instead of going back up to Gibbs. We just go from Browns D to Lions D. That still works, Tambo.
Yeah, I was good with that. I think that's the other thing I was looking at was like how do we get CMC into it is what I was trying to figure out, but.
How do we get CMC? We can't.
I mean, you just take out Shaheed. I'm saying if you're going to go with Barner, I think you can make a case for pulling Shaheed now. In this one, we already did the good Shaheed one. We came up with a couple options. It's like, now can you get to something that makes sense? You'd be able to move down off Kyron and get somebody else there. There's definite ways you can go now. Yeah.
Yeah, you could go Pop Douglas as the wide receiver in the Shaheed spot. Cook up to McCaffrey, and Texans D does fit. And just objectively, I like Texans D this week against Trevor Lawrence. I know it doesn't fit with what we're doing, but I like them.
Yeah, I was trying to see. Yeah, that's fine. I think that's good too. I was just trying to see if there was other alternatives, and it's pretty tricky. That's the thing about this side of the build. Hopefully we get more news and can make more work in our favor, but I still like the Brissett side. You mentioned liking Wilson. That's an even added bonus to my thoughts because I was already liking Marv and McBride. And then on the other game that we talked about, the Chicago side of the Jackson Dart stuff, I think going the other way with Rome, who just crushed everybody's dreams, and then other stuff they've got going on there. I think that could be another way to go.
Yeah, well, we'll build up that game next. I want to go back to this Brissett lineup. So Brissett, JSN, Marv, and McBride. Do we need Michael Wilson in this lineup, do you think? Or no? Or does it save enough money that it makes sense?
I like to just build it without Michael Wilson. And then if you're like, well, wait a minute, how could I get this guy in? And it's like, all right, let's just go Michael Wilson instead of Marv and hope it's that kind of week or whatever, that kind of setup. But the key for me is you're doing this to get JSN in there. That's how you're doing this. So really filling it out after that is what I'd be looking at. Like, what does the rest of the lineup look like if we go to your, some of the options you were on already, I think are fine. If you went with like Judkins, Williams, Jennings, does that put us in a spot that we like? I don't know.
Judkins, Williams, Jennings, but we're using a flex spot on. Actually, no, we can use a receiver.
No, we still have a wide receiver. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so it's the shitty $4,900 spot where it's like, is there anything there? Probably not.
And if we used Michael Wilson, John, in that Jennings spot, we could get back up to a capable running back again, I think.
Yeah, Jacoby Brissett's going to need the passing yards and touchdowns. Like, he's not necessarily going to, be adding the rushing yards. So, yeah, I know. I like the idea of your three receiver, especially when one of them is 3,300. Like, Michael Wilson has to do so little to pay off that price tag that it makes sense in a Jacoby Brissett lineup.
So in this current lineup, and obviously we can drop like Browns defense. Let's just drop Browns defense down to Giants defense for the moment. Although if we're not using Dowdle in this lineup, the Saints defense might not be so bad here. If my entire thesis is kind of fade Carolina because they don't do anything, maybe the Saints D just scores a touchdown.
Yeah, I didn't hate that actually. By the way, earlier when you were, if you're not in on this guy, which you're not very heavily at least, I think that's definitely an opportunity to say the least. If you want to end up there.
I mean, we probably don't need that much money to use the Saints, but that does open up to Nico Collins here. Like, we could try to find, is there anyone cheaper than Vikings, Cardinals, Commanders, and Dolphins? And does anyone like any of those defenses?
I'll say the Giants, it's more money. The Giants are 2,500, but it's a potential rain and snow spot.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what the weather's like in Washington, but anyway, let's keep the Saints in here for the moment. Just trying to see like what else we can do. Because I don't like the 6,700. Maybe you guys like the $6,700 spot more. Like, does anyone like Nico Collins? Anyone like Rashad White or Jalen Waddle? Or could we find $100 and get to Derrick Henry?
Yeah, I'd probably rather find the 100.
How do we find the $100? Do we just bite the bullet, Tambo, with defense and just say, if the Titans scored 2 touchdowns last week, anyone can score 2 touchdowns?
It's possible. I'm looking at projections while I'm doing this, and like for me, the bigger thing is probably pulling. Like I said earlier, I'd be more than happy to pull Marv for Wilson in this type of build because I'm just saying it's what gets me the better looking lineup overall, and I kind of like putting Jennings back in there across. Leaving the Saints and then getting Achane in and calling it a day of like, yeah, I don't have Marv, but hasn't hurt me a lot of weeks, to be honest. So it's like, maybe it's okay. But I do like Marv this week. I'm just noting this is like, this is how I might look at it and say, okay, I actually feel better about something like this. I'm not on Dowdle. I've got other mid-range running backs. I've got a full stack, a secondary. I feel good about that. Achane is just a great play on its own. Like to me, I like something like this a little bit more.
What do you feel about this one, John, about what we were trying to do, trying to squeeze Henry in somewhere?
I like the Devin Achane lineup much better.
Okay.
Like in that price range, like, Derrick Henry is a guy that like sticks out if we're not playing Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Achane is like much safer with the reception possibilities against the Bills.
Well, John, how do you feel about like we're trying to go through this stuff and figure out like we want part of this game, part of that game, but when you have 5 or 6 games around the highest total, how does that change your strategy on a slate?
I think it just depends on the context of the games. Like these totals are not all built the same. You've got like that Buffalo Miami game is the one that I think has like officially the highest total. I think it's touched 50 points, but then that's a 10-point spread with a quarterback that really spreads the ball out, but also has rushing possibilities, but is also very expensive, but is also much cheaper than he has been this season, inexplicably at 7,000. So like those are all the kinds of things you kind of have to float around in your brain. Like, I've talked about the strategy that I really like single entry contests, but I don't just build one lineup. I build like 5 or 6 or 8 single entry lineups and then spread them out across different contests that I've entered, even though they're single entry. Because that's a way you can get exposure to a lot of different games. But then sometimes I just do focus on one game in particular, and I make a few different variations of that game. So it really just depends on the context of the week and the context of those higher game totals.
Every single week, Tambo, we always talk about like, hey, well, let's build this stack and like get in this mini stack from this game. We don't want to leave that game to the side, but you're going to have to this week.
Yeah, and certainly that's part of it too. Like the alleviating yourself of the FOMO and the fear of missing out when it comes to this stuff is important, because when you're saying this game is the game, that's what people have to remember. If you only have one entry, that's what leverage lane is for. And like it's even then we tell people you have to pick your lane and know that you could go into the ditch or you could go on the fast track to the Autobahn to the top of the tournament. That's the ultimate goal for everybody. But when you're saying it's this game and you ultimately pick your spot, you're saying it's not the other games. So you don't have to feel the need to like fill it in completely with a piece from every single game. That's going to be really hard to do because on a week like this, to your point, Pat, in our parlay example we always give, I mean, you're going to need to put together a 5 or 6 game parlay and hit on the exact pieces from all 5 or 6 of those games versus just focusing on what you want to play, focus on the better version or the best version of the lineup that makes sense that you think could actually win, and then just alleviate yourself with the FOMO on the spots you're not at. That's how you have to do it.
Well, let's finish this off with the highest remaining game that we haven't touched on. There was also a question in the chat. John, I want to ask you, is going Jags-Texans a bit too sneaky?
Yeah, I think the game's got a like 37 total. So like that, yeah, it's probably not a place I'm going to go in any kind of large volume. I'm much more inclined to like go with the lowest total early in the season because the totals tend to not be as spread out. We don't have as much information. Like we kind of have the information on both of these teams. Like I don't necessarily want to pick on the Texans defense at home with Jacksonville, or like even play the Texans offense at home against Jacksonville. So like that's just a game I'm probably not going to go to in high volume with it having a total that's like 13 points lower than like say Buffalo Miami.
Well, Tambo, you said you wanted to do Chicago, the Giants. I put in Caleb Williams as the quarterback. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, I think it would just be like, again, something we have to keep in monitor of the weather and whatnot. But I think it would be probably just going to like Rome and Zacchaeus, or I think we're still waiting on some injury stuff too, just depending on how it all shakes out. What do you have right now for the updates on injury news, Pat?
It seems like Komet is going to play. Luther Burden is going to play. So all those, like, even someone like Colston Loveland, I like less if Cole Komet is playing. Like, he only really went off the moment Komet left again last week.
Yeah, that's what I said last week. I was annoyed because I wanted to play Loveland beforehand, and I was like, oh, Komet's back. He's good. And then Loveland goes on to just smash completely. So, yeah, I'd be fine going to any two of Rome, Moore, or Zacchaeus is how I would look at it.
Can we just make this very simple? Like, do we need to overstack this buck? We just say Caleb and Rome. This is the week that they get it done.
Yes, you could definitely just do that. You're looking at it. It's $12K for the cost of the two. If Rome gets a couple of touchdowns, it hurts the others, and that would still help Caleb. And then Caleb could do, I don't know, last week you had DJ Moore throw Caleb Williams a touchdown. So maybe it's Rome's turn to show his dad that he can be a quarterback as well.
On the Giants side, John, do you think that we have to run it back? Would it be Darius Slayton? Would it be Wandale Robinson, Theo Johnson? Like, where do you go here?
I've got a Colston Loveland pitch that's just pretty fast. Like, are we really not going to play the first round highly drafted tight end the week after he breaks out just because Cole Komet's coming back? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe they just want Colston Loveland to look good so they save their jobs. And that Cole Komet, maybe being able to, suit up and play isn't making a huge impact. So, like, I think we should like highly consider, if we're playing Caleb Williams, like getting Colston Loveland in there, especially like Roma Dunze potentially being a little bit dinged up. But like, to answer your
price
question,
too.
Was that?
I was just gonna say. I thought you were sorry. I thought I was gonna say, and his price too is gonna scare people off just as much. It's not Best Buy pricing. He's 4,100. It's like, oh, can't do that. Not the guy that can get you almost 40 points last week, but can't do that at 4,100.
Yeah. But like, to answer your question, Pat, I would go Darius Slayton, right? Break the Slayton. He's the long touchdown guys. We haven't seen it so far this season, but like, we're probably going to see it at some point, and maybe against the Bears defense when they might be slipping all over the field. The offense can get an edge there sometimes, right? Like, 'cause they know where they're going as opposed to the defensive players. So yeah, I'd go Darius Slayton.
So just to look back at, and this trend has been ticking up a little bit, and it perfectly coincided with the Komet injury. So you could be right that now that Komet has been kind of pushed aside with injuries, they've seen what Loveland can do as a focal point of this offense. Like, he's played 81% of the snaps each of the past 2 weeks. Obviously, 2 weeks ago, Komet he got like rocked immediately. No, he didn't play 2 weeks ago. So he had 0%. He only had 26 the week before. But even the week before that, he played 41% of the snaps before his injury, and Loveland still got out there for 67% of the time. Durham Smythe really wasn't doing all that much. So yeah, let's stick with that. We'll throw in Slayton. Now we got $6,000 per player, John, to mess around with here. Is there a different way that you want to do this? Because we figured out a way to work in JSN into a lineup with McCaffrey, Gibbs. We have not talked about Puka, who's dealing with this ribs injury, but is going to play in this game against the 49ers. Would it be crazy to use Puka here, or is he just too expensive?
Like, he just finishes games so infrequently. I love Puka as a player. I love watching Puka on the field until he's not. So if I'm not playing Matthew Stafford, like, I don't know. It seems terrible to say this, but like JSN is just so much more reliable. It feels like I don't know. Like, Puka's gonna leave this game early, so yeah. I would rather probably get JSN in there or Christian McCaffrey than Puka, frankly.
Well, how would you play it, Tambo, if we were going to spend up, or do you like the idea of just going pure balance again?
I was just messing around with it. I'll give you one, and then you can change it. I got to CMC with Judkins, with the Browns D, and then it landed me on James Cook. And I said, whatever, I'll just throw Zacchaeus in there too and call it a day.
I was going to say Michael Wilson just because I like him more, but I just don't see Zacchaeus. I just don't see Zacchaeus playing a lot in this game would be my only problem here. Like, what's Luther Burden? Luther Burden is 38. He's actually too much money for what we're doing.
That's like $100. You could find it.
Yeah, we could find it, but looking at even the snap shares from last week, Zacchaeus got out there for 64% of the snaps because Burden went down. I mean, he's been right around, I guess, 50%. So yeah, maybe that ends up working. You need a touchdown out of him, though.
you need something out of him more than what he's been doing. But if you look, like, even before, he had 8 targets last week, 7 the week before that, 6 and 6, and with a 3 mixed in. But 4 of the last 5 weeks, he's getting 6+ targets. And if you think they're going to be chucking it around, this is a possibility. So I just was messing around with it. I think you can go more balanced for sure and be able to flip it around some.
Well, what you could do here, John, you could take Zacchaeus and Cook out, and you could go Luther Burden and Devin A-Chain if you wanted to stick with that game, or you could figure out a way up or down to either Michael Wilson as a one-off or Pop Douglas as a one-off. Keep James Cook, potentially get him up to Gibbs if you really wanted to do that, or increase your defense is another route you could take.
I don't mind the Luther Burden call, and it kind of goes like with a whole theme of the lineup of like the Bears need their early draft picks to look good to start making the organization look good. Like the whole idea of drafting Luther Burden was to eventually replace Zacchaeus, and it hasn't happened. And he had a concussion issue, but it looks like he's going to be cleared. I like the idea of James Cook, but he's highly volatile. Like, I think that like putting Luther Burden in there gets us really different. Like Zacchaeus is actually going to project really well. I don't think people are going to go to Luther Burden. So yeah, I mean, this lineup has a whole theme of, obviously this game hitting a high total, but also of the Bears getting their younger players more involved as the season goes on, and that we're ahead of it instead of being behind it.
I see you people watching here in the chat. You smash the like button and sub to the channel, all right? That would be fantastic news for all of us. The only other way I could think about playing this, I'm just trying to think, like, if we have Loveland, Burden, and I know that they're super cheap, and Roma Dunze Tambo with Caleb Williams, and the only bring back that we have is Slayton, like, the Giants would have to score points somewhere in order for this to work.
Yeah, it's possible. So you could get like if you really think that, you'd have to go to the overstack, almost treat it like Chicago Cincy from last week and find a way to get things moved around. Like, how much is Robinson's 53?
Yeah.
So maybe you move A-Chan up, and then you're keeping the other stuff the same, I think. So yeah, you'd have to move A-Chan up to Judkins, move the flex to Robinson. I mean, you can move things around because pricing, but either way, it would just give you more for a defense. That's really what it would look like.
Did we like that more or less?
You'd still have an overage of something because you'd have $1,200 more.
Yeah, you could get up to the better defense, I suppose. We could go H-Chan up to Gibbs, Detroit D, and Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yeah, I was putting Robinson in. I just don't know what else. I mean, if you put Robinson in for Judkins and move A-Chan up, you still have too much money left over.
Yeah, but I'm saying you could get let's try that. So I played that one lineup. You could go Judkins into Gibbs, let's say. And then you use Wan'Dale.
Oh, you're taking A-Chan out.
Yeah. And then you go Browns up to Lions. Yeah, you do have enough. Then you go Lions with Gibbs with Wan'Dale Robinson, just the overstack of that game. Although, as John mentioned, there could be like really shitty weather there. But I just feel like if you're going to use 3 pass catchers, John, from Caleb Williams, like the Giants would have to score in order to keep them passing.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're using Caleb Williams, it's an assumption the weather is not bad for the passing game.
Yeah, true. That's probably the way you'd want to do it. All right. Yeah. Any other thoughts that you guys have on this slate, or do you think that we've touched on all the key points?
I think it's good. I feel good about where we're at. I like some of those builds that we put together today, especially, putting them in something 5,000 or less in the field size. I definitely think there's some options there. So yeah, I'm interested in see how it all plays out. We'll get more news over the weekend and be able to look at some of the stuff on weather and injuries and updates on that stuff. But I like a lot of the thoughts we put out there today.
John, go ahead. And you have the live show at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time today as well, right?
Yep, got the 12:30 DFS MVP podcast for 444. I'm joined by Pat Crane, Davis Maddock, and Neil Orfield. Get my positional rankings and my long form article out by tonight. Probably should be coming out this afternoon. And then I've got the solo ship show at we record in the afternoon. Usually comes out by evening time, Eastern time. On Fridays, and then got my 10:30 Discord audio chat to finalize any last minute decisions, depending on the weather and the injury reports.
One last question from the chat. Joe says, is Judkins as chalk going to rip our hearts out again like he did a couple weeks ago? I believe that's in the game he got hurt in. I know the New York lost a bunch of guys at the deadline, but do we trust Judkins? I trust Judkins to get the ball. Whether he scores or not, I don't know, but give him the ball 20 times against the Jets defense feels like good things are going to happen. And I don't think that he's going to be like super duper chalk here. I think that Dowdle might be 3 times his owned.
Yeah, the week he was the biggest chalk, he absolutely broke the slate. So I'm not sure what there's talking about his poor track record. The week that he actually became huge chalk and was massively owned everywhere, I think he had 3 touchdowns or it was 2 or 3 touchdowns that week plus everything else.
John, do you think that Judkins will end up being highly owned versus some of the other guys in his area?
No, I don't. I do think Rio Dowdle is going to get some ownership, so I don't think Judkins is going to be as chalky as he should be. And I think people are actually like overestimating the Jets defense, if that's possible, just because we have enough information to like start computing things for like so far this season. And I think the Jets have given up the 7th most rushing yards per game, but I expect that number to look worse, having traded away their defense as the season goes on. So I think Judkins is maybe a little bit underprojected.
All right. That will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. 4for4.com/Mayo will get you into the hub, and code Mayo50 will get you a free 7-day trial of the Sharp Stack app, which includes all of the DFS tools, optimizer, sims, all John stuff, all the projections, all the betting stuff, all the betting tools, all the fantasy football tools. It's all there for you. 4for4.com/Mayo, code Mayo50 to get that. All right. Smash like and sub to the channel on the way out, and I will see you next time.